Antonio Brown's life story is the kind of saga that keeps fans glued to their screens. A young man, nearly swallowed up by adversity, who rose to become one of NFL's most electrifying athletes. Yet that extraordinary rise didn't come without chaos. One moment he's the underdog you can't help but root for, ascending from homelessness to the pinnacle of professional football. The next he's embroiled in controversy so dramatic, it feels more fitting for a Hollywood thriller than The Locker Room. How did a player with Hall of Fame potential end up in headlines for all the wrong reasons? Let's dive deeper into one of the most perplexing journeys in NFL history and see why Antonio Brown remains such a mesmerizing figure, both on and off the field. Growing up in Liberty City, Miami, Antonio Brown faced more than just poverty. He faced a future that seemed predetermined for failure. His father, Eddie, was barely out of his teens when Antonio was born. Eddie soon moved on to pursue football elsewhere, leaving Antonio's mother, Adrian, to shoulder the crushing weight of bills, rent, and raising two young boys in one of the most crime-riddled neighborhoods in the country. By the time he could form permanent memories, Brown had seen more danger than most people experience in a lifetime. Life in Liberty City was tough enough, but the real heartbreak came when Antonio found himself kicked out of the house at 16 for clashing with his stepfather. With no consistent roof over his head, he drifted between friends' couches and the back seats of cars, scraping together the bare minimum for food, and sometimes finding enough spare change for a cheap motel room. This was hardly a life for a teenager, and yet, within this bleak picture, football shone like a beacon of possibility. It became his one refuge, a place where the size of your heart mattered more than the size of your bank account. At Miami Norland High School, Brown discovered that his speed, footwork, and ability to process the game were special. Even as a short 5'10" athlete, he played quarterback, running back, receiver, and returned punts, all with a flair that caught the eyes of college programs. For a moment, it looked like football might be his ticket out. Not even a jaw-dropping high school stat could mask his academic struggles, though. Schools like Michigan State and Clemson took a peek but ultimately turned away because of his insufficient grades. Brown soon learned a harsh lesson. Raw talent opens doors, but it doesn't guarantee you'll walk through them. He landed a spot at Alcorn State, but eligibility issues forced him out. Undeterred, Brown hopped a Greyhound bus to a prep school in North Carolina, determined to prove himself. His brief stint there was nothing short of dominant. In just 5 games as a quarterback, he piled up over 1,200 passing yards and ran for 13 touchdowns, showing the world that he wasn't just hype. Then came a scholarship from Florida International University, an actual chance to compete at the Division I level, but this golden ticket vanished in an instant when Brown got into a dispute on campus, resulting in expulsion. It looked like his dream of playing top-tier football might be finished. Finally, a lifeline emerged when Central Michigan offered him a walk-on spot. The kicker? He'd have to switch from quarterback to wide receiver. Desperate for any shot he could get, Brown agreed. By the end of the fall camp, he earned a full scholarship and embarked on a record-smashing college career. In 3 seasons, his speed, return ability, and receiving talents were undeniable, netting him multiple conference honors and enough highlights to fill an entire college reel. Despite those achievements at Central Michigan, NFL scouts weren't sold on Brown's size, pedigree, or mental makeup. He went into the 2010 draft hoping at least one organization would take a flyer on him before the late rounds. After hours of disappointment, the Pittsburgh Steelers finally selected him 195th overall. Brown never forgot that 31 other teams had collectively passed him over again and again. As a reminder, he chose jersey number 84, because 8 times 4 is 32, telling anyone who'd listened that every team, Steelers included, had undervalued him. Proving people wrong had been his mission for years, but the NFL was a new beast entirely. In Pittsburgh, he started 5th on the wide receiver depth chart, an afterthought for a squad with Super Bowl ambitions. Brown spent his rookie season mostly watching from the sidelines and absorbing the intricacies of the pro game, but that apprenticeship proved short-lived. In his second season, he erupted for over 1,000 combined receiving and returning yards, giving everyone a taste of his elusive moves and breakaway speed. The Steelers saw enough to lock him in a lucrative 5-year deal, convinced they'd secured a future star. Little did they know, they'd just given a megaphone to a personality that would soon outsize any stadium in the league. Once Brown got his feet under him, there was virtually no way to stop him. The 2013 season became his official breakout moment, with 110 receptions and almost 1,500 receiving yards. Defenders struggled to match his quickness off the line of scrimmage. his short stature almost worked in his favor, enabling him to scuttle through small gaps and slip tackles with jaw-dropping ease. In 2014, he shattered expectations again, leading the league in both receptions and yards. The man nicknamed AB was morphing into the NFL's unstoppable puzzle, solving cornerbacks weekly with toe-tapping sideline catches and highlight reel touchdown grabs. But he didn't stop there. In 2015, he racked up even more outrageous numbers, adding another All-Pro nod to his resume. The combination of agility, precise route running, and a competitive fire that never dimmed turned him into a Sunday spectacle that fans wouldn't dare to miss. Few receivers in history, not even legends like Jerry Rice or Randy Moss, have put together such prolonged runs of dominance. It seemed that each time Brown stepped onto the field, he was determined to break another record or produce another mesmerizing play. While Brown was busy setting the football world on fire, trouble brewed behind the scenes. Cracks began to show in Pittsburgh's locker room. Rumors circulated that Brown demanded the ball obsessively, brushed off coaching criticism, and clashed with the Steelers' iconic quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger. No matter how brilliant Brown's stats looked on paper, the friction made headlines of its own. Then came the moment that confirmed these rumblings. Brown was arrested after allegedly throwing furniture from a high-rise condo, with some items nearly striking a child below. Suddenly, the shining star was under a spotlight for all the wrong reasons. In the final week of the 2018 season, the tension boiled over. A heated argument with Roethlisberger during practice led Brown to skip subsequent team activities. The coaches benched him for the season finale, and the Steelers missed the playoffs. A meltdown created a point of no return. Brown demanded a trade, and the Steelers, exhausted by non-stop drama, were ready to grant it. Despite his 6 consecutive seasons of at least 100 receptions and 1,200 receiving yards, Pittsburgh saw no choice but to ship him to the Oakland Raiders. In exchange, they only got a 3rd and 5th round draft pick, illustrating just how wary other teams were of Brown's off-field baggage. Once he touched down in Oakland, it felt like a fresh start, or so everyone hoped. Instead, it became an unhinged sideshow. First, Brown showed up with frostbitten feet due to a mishap in a cryotherapy chamber. As he recovered, he kicked off a public fight against the NFL's new helmet rules, missing time while battling the league over equipment preferences. Tensions in the Raiders organization soared when Brown got into a verbal brawl with the team's general manager and reportedly used racial slurs against him. Although AB later apologized, he abruptly demanded his release, making it obvious that reconciliation wasn't in the cards. When Oakland cut ties, the New England Patriots swooped in, famous for rehabilitating wayward stars under the strict Bill Belichick regime. But this partnership proved short-lived. Brown's sexual misconduct allegations surfaced almost immediately, prompting the Patriots to cut him off after just 1 game. Many around the league assumed his days were done. After all, if Belichick and Tom Brady couldn't help him out of trouble, who could? Brown stepped away from the field, carrying enough accusations and controversies to overshadow even his spectacular highlight reel. It took Tom Brady's personal endorsement to bring Brown back into the league, this time in Tampa Bay. Brady knew he was gambling with the team's culture, but the Buccaneers were in a win-now frenzy. They had just signed the legendary quarterback and felt the championship window was small. Brown entered quietly, contributed some key plays, and even scored in the Bucs' Super Bowl victory that season. For a moment, it seemed he discovered a sense of humility and perspective, after nearly being exiled from the entire professional football league. But it wasn't long before old habits resurfaced. In late 2021, Brown faced suspension for misrepresenting his vaccination status, proving that unpredictability was still a defining part of his identity. Tension simmered anew, and in a crucial late-season game against the New York Jets, Brown delivered a dramatic final act that stunned everyone. Upset over an argument on the sidelines, he stripped off his gear and jogged shirtless across the end zone and into the locker room, waving goodbye to fans as though it was some kind of farewell performance. The Bucs severed ties. With that bizarre exit, the world witnessed one of the most surreal endings imaginable for a player of his caliber. When you peel back the drama, there's no denying Antonio Brown's spot among the NFL's all-time talents at wide receiver. His numbers from 2013 to 2018 remain almost mythical. Over 100 catches each season, double-digit touchdowns, and countless enthralling highlights. For many fans, he was must-see TV, combining raw skill with a brash confidence that made every snap feel like a potential spectacle. On pure athletic ability alone, he ranks with the best in history. In the end, perhaps both truths are valid. He was the unstoppable receiver nobody could guard, and he was the volatile personality nobody could tame. Antonio Brown's story remains one of triumph against unimaginable odds and simultaneous self-destruction. It's unlikely we'll see another player combine such unstoppable potential with equally uncontainable chaos for a long time, if ever again. And that might be the most perplexing part of all. Long after the highlight reels stop rolling, people will still talk about Antonio Brown, not just for how brilliantly he played, but for how shockingly he burned every bridge he crossed.